Hello and welcome to the Poetry Box Perspective podcast, an NHL podcast covered by two men from the UK. My name's Nathaniel, and today I'm joined once again by my good friend Matt. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good, Nathaniel. Yeah, how about yourself? Feeling better?
I'm feeling a lot better than what I did earlier this week. Voice is a little rough still, but that's probably because I went to another gig last night.
Honestly, you've got like the most active social life of anyone I know. You just going to gigs left and right, but no,
it's just all in 1 week. I'm doing nothing for the rest of the year. I don't leave the house now.
That's it for the year. All done. No, I'm glad to hear you doing better, mate. Anyway.
Yeah, how are you getting on? Are you fully over your man flu from last week?
I believe so. Yeah, I think that's it. Hopefully that's everything sorted. Starting to feel good. I think that the return of the NHL season's lifted my spirits a little bit. I've loved it so far. It's been great already. We've had some cracking games, and I'm just dead happy for it to be back. I think there was a few of us the other night all watching the Chicago Florida game, where as it started at a very, very nice and convenient 10 p.m. time in the UK, which I know is still late in the evening, but in comparison to usual, it was nice to be able to sort of get that on.
Absolutely. And I echo your sentiments about the start of the season. It's just been nice. And as much as I want to talk about everything that's been happening, I think we're going to have to save that to the recap episode early next week.
We'll get into some rundowns once the teams have all played a few games and we start to have a bit of a better picture of how it's all going to look, and you know who's flying out the gates and who can't unlock the gate just yet. But so we've got one of our shorter episodes today, and a bit of a slightly different one to our last few. Nathaniel, I'll let you lead off on this.
Yeah, well, off the back of me having an active social life for this 1 week and 1 week only, obviously I went to watch the NFL on Sunday, and I'm a big NFL fan as well as the NHL. And it got me kind of thinking, really, like how come the NHL doesn't come over to the UK at all to play any games over here? I mean, I know the NFL's a lot bigger corporation, it's more wider known, etc., and they play games in several countries these days. And I know the NHL plays as its sort of winter series, the upper stadium series, but as far as I'm aware, so we'll touch into it in a bit more detail in the more Nordic countries. But it just got me thinking, and I raised it to you, and you said, yeah, that might be a great topic of conversation, is how come NHL doesn't play games in the UK, and what would it look like if they did, really? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. What are your thoughts on it, to start with, really?
Yeah, well, I echo that sentiment massively. Obviously, I know they've been having the NFL over in the UK for a long time now. I think it's got to have been at least 10 years, right? If not longer.
40 games they've just played now.
What? Right, okay. Yeah. So way more. And then I also know that they've been incorporating the London series of the baseball as well in the MLB. I was able to go to one of the games at the Olympic Stadium last year, I think, which was fantastic. Really good experience, and they're really able to sort of capture the game day experience of it all. And obviously, when it comes down to popularity, even in sort of North America, the NFL probably sits, I would say, at the moment, it's kind of jostling for third place with the NBA, I think. You've got the NFL and Major League Baseball that are they're almost in a league of their own in terms of their popularity. I know the NBA's on a little bit of a slide at the moment, whilst the NHL's been on a bit of a rise. So it's kind of like, jostling for that third place position. So it's not necessarily the biggest sport over there, but I just think that, especially with the sort of diversity of people that we have over here in the UK. We've got a lot of American citizens, we've got a lot of Canadian citizens and everything like that as well. So I think I can't believe it's a market that they haven't tried to sort of delve into as much recently, because I think it would be nothing but successful as far as the NHL goes.
Yeah, I mean they have played games in the UK in the past, but I mean the last time was 2007, and they actually opened up this regular season in the UK with the Ducks and the Kings going back and forth. They played 2 games in London. But since then, it's just been like nothing, really. But yeah, so I certainly think from the top that it is something that would get the interest in the UK, I think. And I think we'll talk about it in a bit more detail, but whether it's in a stadium, whether it's in an arena, I do think they would get... I think it'd be a sellout either way, whichever direction they go. But that might be from a biased NHL fan. But I just think in general, they see a competition, a sport they never get a chance to see, and people generally flock, even if they're not the biggest diehard fan.
I would say so. Yeah, I think as well, like the exclusivity of it as well. Obviously, you'd have your diehard NHL fans that would be looking to go. You'd also have your more casual fans who have an opportunity to go and watch a game. And there's also, I know we're going to touch on sort of the elite league, the EIHL, which is the league in the United Kingdom. There'd be a lot of fans from there as well who would also be looking to go. Like you said, I know they've done the global series kind of around Scandinavia, and we've had games sort of all over Europe, it seems, at the moment. And I know that the popularity of hockey is probably much bigger around the rest of Europe than it is necessarily in the United Kingdom. But yeah, ice hockey fandom as a whole in the United Kingdom, it's, I think, coinciding with the sort of worldwide view, like the sport is growing, the sport is getting bigger. Every year since 2022, the attendances in the Elite Ice Hockey League, they've been growing. Year after year after year, the arrow's been pointing up. A lot of the teams have actually been sort of expanding their arena capacity in terms of what they have open and available for the games, just to meet the demand, which is really, really good to see. I know I've been and seen a few games at Sheffield in the past. I think you've been to a few games at Sheffield as well. Is that right? Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know obviously there is a quality difference between the NHL and the EIHL. Like let's not ignore that aspect, but still the arenas are full. The fans are really, really into it, and there is a really big following. Up and down. There's over 1 million fans. I think last year, in the 24-25 season, there was 1.2, more or less 1.25 million fans attending last year. So an average of around 3,660 per game, which was the highest in the league's history. So again, hockey is at a kind of a hot point at the moment where, its fandom's at an all-time high. The interest in the sport is growing. You've got a lot of these fantastic young players coming into the league, and a lot of their personalities are coming out. I think obviously across like social media as well. The accessibility is growing in that regard. You've even got things like the second series of the Amazon Prime documentary that's dropped in this week just gone, which is another avenue for people to consume hockey, and especially in sort of kind of a high quality format like that. I'm not sure if you've watched any of that or not, but it's a really, really well produced show. So I think that,
like what you see for the NFL, the NFL's done a big push on that in terms of NFL films and Hard Knocks and Quarterbacks on Netflix now and stuff like that. So the fact that hockey's got its own show. Sorry to interrupt, but I agree.
No. It was just a small sort of aspect. Now, Ice Hockey UK, so the kind of governing body that covers hockey in this country, them and the NHL, they did launch like a partnership in 2024. So they launched what was called NHL Street, which was like street and youth like ball hockey programs. So kind of very similar, just played obviously with a ball on a non-ice surface. Just because the capacity for rinks in this country is kind of dwindling, shall we say? And I think that does kind of form another aspect to it, is the sort of lack of available ice facilities in the UK as well. So I don't know, this kind of partnership maybe launched last year. Does that maybe point itself more towards them looking to integrate themselves a bit more into the UK market, maybe?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's two sides to this, really. They want to increase participation and more players playing the sport of ice hockey. They're facing challenges in the UK. Obviously, the Elite League's doing really well. I know the Elite League teams are struggling quite badly in the sort of the Champions Hockey League, which, like football, we have our sort of national leagues and then sort of a more European-wide competition. It's slightly different to the NHL in that the best teams from each league in Europe will go up against each other. And typically the UK teams don't really do that well in that. But then just like you said about the lack of available ice rinks, but not only that as well, it's the cost of participating, the cost of the gear, the safety, like the uniforms, safety measures, sort of helmets, sticks, skates, pads, etc. It's an expensive sort of sport to get into, as opposed to other things like even like football. You just get a football, kick it around. You can use jumpers for goalposts. You can't really do that for ice hockey. You can't sort of replicate that.
No, and that's a worldwide issue as well. I know it gets brought up a lot in in Canada and the US, is the barrier for entry for a lot of young people. It's an expensive sport, especially if you're a young child. When they're trying to get their kids into the game around sort of age 4 or 5. Obviously as they get bigger, you've got to replace the equipment every couple of years, and you're talking helmets, pads, skates, sticks, shin guards, and that's not even if if your kid wants to be a goalie. That chucks another sort of cost on top of that as well. I know that has been sort of like a worldwide issue. And I know that there's a lot of teams in the NHL that do sort of youth programs during the off season where kids can come and try hockey for free, and they'll get kind of sized up for some kit on the day, and they'll be able to sort of just have a bit of a play around and see if they're into it, etc. Without necessarily making that quite steep financial commitment. But it's like you said, if you wanted to play football over here, you put your jumpers down, or we used to use bikes back in the day, and you've got some goalposts, or in the US, if you can throw a basketball around, or you can grab a baseball and some mitts, set up some bases and stuff if you've got the space. It's quite, there's a lot more sports that are easier to just sort of pick up and play than hockey. So I think that there is that sort of aspect of that barrier, I think, as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing, for like growing the sport, you need a more holistic approach and go at different angles, not just display the sport. As much as I think, though, just the NHL playing games in London, they will fill out the stadiums or fill out the arenas and sell tickets and make money from that, which should be enough for them to come back and let us watch our sport live in person. Obviously there's challenges across the board on how they deal with the whole of it. It's an interesting topic of conversation, and I think it is heading in the right direction in that respect, so obviously with this NHL Street, etc. But I think if they can't figure the barriers for entry in the domestic countries in America and Canada, how they're going to do it in the UK is as efficiently. That's the question that raises itself for me.
Yeah, no, completely agree. Just in terms of, again, the sort of growth of the NHL in the UK, I know you actually mentioned it on last week's episode about sort of accessibility of actually watching the games. Now, I know that the NHL itself has bounced around a few different providers. This season it finds itself on DAZN, who does seem as though they have kind of got everything sorted. And they do offer a package that is kind of, if you're a die-hard fan, it's quite reasonable. I think you can kind of do a singular membership for about £20 a month, or you can do £25 a month for to kind of get more locations and more devices, that sort of thing. So that's kind of their top end tier. And DAZN do carry quite a lot of things outside of hockey as well. If you're into sort of, I think they show a lot of like the UFC on there. They show a lot of boxing on there. They show all sorts on there. So I think having its massive, having its own platform, is massive for the development of it, and the accessibility to it over here. Yes, okay, if it was on one of your two major providers, so either Sky or TNT, it would probably have a few more eyes on it. But I think at least us being able to have somewhere, that people can watch the games, I think is taking a big step in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. It's in a market in the UK as well where not many other sports play at the time hockey plays at, because it's an evening arena sport in America. The games are often at like midnight, 1 a.m, 3 a.m. Apart from like some of the weekend games, which do start sort of 6-8 p.m. in the UK. It doesn't have that much competition when it's on and live. Obviously, there's the NBA as well that has similar formats, but even the NFL, it's not competing with those sort of time frames either. But there's no British sport that's been shown at the time the NHL is, so there is a clear sort of opportunity there for those sort of night owls to put on, instead of watching some, not to do another sport a disservice, but you can watch cross-country skiing at 1 a.m, highlights of cross-country skiing or something. Or you could watch live NHL hockey. I know which I'd rather watch.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think this runs quite significantly as well. And again, I know we've brought it up a few times, but I think with the Olympics coming around next year, obviously the Olympics being is it in France or is it in Italy? One of the two. Regardless, yeah, I've drawn an absolute blank on there. It's one of the two. I want to say it's in France. I can't remember. But timing-wise, that's going to work quite well for a lot of UK watchers. Obviously, it's only going to be sort of like an hour, either side in terms of being able to watch it, and being able to have the best players in the world back playing in those tournaments is going to really showcase the sport in its best light. And I think that could see a massive sort of surge in popularity. But in terms of the NHL actually having games abroad, the model works. They've had games in Czechia, in Finland, in Sweden, all sellouts. There's clearly an appetite in the European market for NHL games. So it's, there's definitely an appetite for it. And even senior NHL officials, they have identified London specifically as a target market for future global events. So I feel like we're not a million miles away from it happening. It's just a question of when, and I'm hoping it's something that they agree some sort of long-term deal for, as opposed to it just being like a one-off exhibition, and then we have to wait another 18 years for the next game after that. But yeah, I think like a back-to-back nights would be brilliant, and I'm just hoping that's something that they've got sort of in the pipeline.
Yeah. I mean, they do it for other countries as well. But the point I'd have in my mind with the NFL, sorry to bring it back to that again, but they play a game on the weekend, and the teams afterwards would have a bye week the week after generally, where they then fly back home and they don't play the week after, and so there's a 2-week gap. And obviously, hockey is a very sort of condensed schedule. They play a lot more games in a short space of time, so it's a case of if they could equally plan it and have schedules where like it doesn't collide with other sports like the NFL in sort of October. They could do sort of November, early November time, so it's not crunch time of the season at all. It's just generic mid-season games, and schedule it in properly.
Yeah, absolutely. So if there was to be an NHL match in the UK, what would that look like? So in terms of your stadiums, I mean, we've got, I think, a few options. I think from the research that I kind of did into this prior, your kind of most viable options would either be, if you wanted to do it at Wembley, that's got a 90,000 capacity. They've previously hosted the NFL there. They've had, a lot of events there. Obviously, it's one of the most kind of premium stadiums in the world, in terms of notoriety, image, etc. I do think that 90,000 capacity is a little bit of a sticking point. I think maybe that would be a bit of a struggle. You've also got somewhere like Twickenham, which is the rugby stadium for the England rugby team. They do have, by all accounts, and like the actual infrastructure of getting the ice in there and everything, that would be doable at their end. And the other option potentially would be the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which obviously would be my pick. I'm a Tottenham Hotspur fan. Now, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, you've just been there in the last week. For those who maybe haven't been, what were your impressions of I know it's probably not your first time you've been, but, in terms of the stadium as a whole, impressions of the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium?
No, it's a fantastic stadium. It's brand new. Great facilities, spacing, food, drink are fantastic. Great views from around the stadium as well. It's not really a bad sight line from what I could tell. So I found it a bit painful trying to get in with the security, people queuing in different places, not knowing what they're queuing for. But yeah, very, very, very good and nice stadium. And I know you set me up to try praise your team stadium, so there you go, you've done it.
Well, yeah, I had to try, didn't I? But they've got a capacity of around just shy of 63,000, so I think it's 62,850 is the official capacity. And I think that would be about right. I think capacity-wise, in terms of, what they'd be able to, have in there. Obviously, it's quite difficult because you would be slightly further away. I don't know if they would maybe sort of, if they'd maybe close off the top deck of the capacity, and that would maybe bring it down to about 45,000, which again I think would be more than doable. So yeah, I think certainly the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium's shown that it's got that caveat of them having worked with the NFL. They've got the retractable pitch. They've also they hold concerts there more on such a regular basis as well. And I think it would probably be something along the lines of the concert flooring that they would probably use, and then kind of construct a hockey kind of setup on the top. So yeah, I think that would be my choice. But they put it like this: they certainly have the capacity to do it, don't they? They certainly have the capacity.
Yeah, and absolutely. They no doubt any one of those stadiums could run an event for NHL and ice hockey. No doubt about it. My only sort of counterpoints, and this is not to say you're wrong, absolute at all, but from a different perspective, ice hockey is an arena sport, and they do play games outside, and it's kind of the cool element. But as a diehard NHL fan, my dream would be to go watch my team, the Wild, play in their arena. The acoustics, the closeness to the ice, it's just you can't beat it really. Obviously, you get that sort of feeling like when you go to a Sheffield Steelers game, or I guess any other elite league team. I haven't been to any other stadium, but any other arena. But when you're looking at the logistics of it, and you're looking at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium with the 60,000 capacity, or reduced it down a bit if you're not including the upper ring. In that said, you're looking at pretty much, I would say, to start with, at the very least, a single game, if not 2 games maybe, where everyone goes to the same game, which kind of makes sense on one side of it. The alternative is, and we don't have that many options for infrastructure-wise, but the O2 Arena in central London has a capacity of over 20,000, just over 20,000.
Yeah.
Inside, they've played ice hockey there before. Instead of having one big game, especially in terms of the NHL schedule, having players fly over to play one game and fly back, that probably wouldn't make much sense. They could probably make a series out of it, a 2 or 3 game series, or even if they bring 3 teams over, they can make it a bit more kind of stuff like that, and have
like
a game
sort of
every
round robin
night.
type thing.
Yeah, so it's still part of the NHL, but it's like, even if it's like 3 games, 3 teams, they play each other once, or I don't know, you get where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
So instead of all the fans going to one game, you're spreading it out and still getting the arena, and it's probably, the facilities are probably already custom built there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it would, there's so many. I think that's a really good way of doing it, and you could have like almost like a 3-team series or a 2-team series, or and there's so many ways that you could break that up. I mean, you could have, the Canadians, the Maple Leafs and the Senators do it, or you could have, the Rangers, the Islanders and the Sabres, or you could have, I don't know, Florida, Tampa and Vegas, or some, something. I'm not too sure off the top of my head, or even something like, Chicago, Minnesota and St. Louis, or Detroit, or there's
teams from the same division, which means that they can get a fair rut at the team, so they still get their games at their home stadiums against their rival teams, so they're not diluting that kind of market. But also in a sense where every team has the opportunity to play essentially a home game abroad, so it's not a case of, well, the Wild are going to lose some revenue from playing some of their home games in London instead, kind of thing. Like this, you sort of full circle it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and you could really have some fun with it, couldn't you? In terms of if you were to play like a 3-team round robin, for example, and you were to have a Monday, Wednesday, and a Friday game, or something like, or even sort of Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or however you'd have to spread it out enough for the players to rest, etc. But for each team that's technically having the home game, they could really put a great deal of effort into the presentation of it all, and the video packages and the light packages and the actual kind of colour setup and everything, and in terms of making it feel for those Minnesota players, for example, really making it feel like they're playing at home. I think that'd be really exciting, for them, and kind of getting the players on board with it as well. Obviously, it's quite a sort of a complex. I mean, I'm sure there's a million logistical things that have to go into it, and I'm sure a lot of it boils down to basically who gets the money, how's it divided up, and what does it look like. So, but yeah, I just think that there's a really, really good opportunity for them, for like the NHL media as well, to do some collaborative content sort of in the London area. It would give them so much it'd be an absolute hive of content for them. I don't know, maybe they could work some sort of partnership in with the EIHL in there as well. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Telling me they could play like 2 games on a night kind of thing, lead off with like a
potentially.
They can open up with it.
That was exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, I know they've done it a lot in the UK with like growing the WSL, the Women's Super League. In the football, is that a lot of the time what they'll do is if you buy a ticket to the Premier League game in the evening, it gets you into the WSL game, which they have on before that. So if you want to spend the whole afternoon there, and you kind of get like 2 games back to back almost, and it's sort of great value for money. But they could have you could potentially have some elite league games in there beforehand, or like, I don't know, some sort of elite league all-star game, or I don't know how they would do it, but something to tie the two together, because I think that's quite an important aspect of it. Is if they are going to bring the NHL to the UK in any sort of capacity, it would be nice if the actual domestic league could receive some sort of benefit from that, or just some sort of showcase from that, or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's ideal. I mean, we might be in a bit of dreamland here. What do we know? But that I would eat that up, absolutely. I'd be there all day. This is my plate. I'd probably buy an Elite League jersey and an NHL jersey on that same day. How about that?
Oh, honestly, yeah, they'd have my wallet. It would just be I'd be broke by the end of the week, but it'd be absolutely unbelievable, because there just isn't anything like it. I mean, I know I mentioned it in our very first episode we did. I was very fortunate when I was in Vancouver to go and watch a Canucks game. They played the San Jose Sharks, so not an absolutely massive kind of game in any way, shape or form, but just the atmosphere was absolutely electric. And you made a very good point about like having a venue in an arena with like a roof and everything, and the sound just contained within it. And you were in there. It was cold, and but the fans were all up for it, and it was such an amazing experience. And if there's some way you could capture that, even to like 85-90%, it would be unbelievable. And I'm just got everything crossed that hopefully they find a way of being able to implement it.
Yeah, I mean it's so great when you go to a game and it's not as clear cut in terms of who's supporting who. It's kind of like a rainbow effect of like fandom, but yet in an arena, I think it go down really well. You sat next to obviously a Wild and Blackhawks fan. We could be sat next to a Leafs fan who sat next to a Sharks fan, but everyone's like rejoicing about watching NHL hockey in the UK, and I think it'll be a smash hit. Yeah,
absolutely. So I think that we'll just have to keep everything crossed. I'm very sort of optimistic by the fact that NHL officials have at least sort of spoken about it recently, in terms of the fact that they are intending to try and get something done over in London. Like, that would be absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I think it's just... I think we've kind of covered everything we need to cover. I've just, like I said, a bit of a different episode this week. Just something to indulge ourselves as UK fans, and how we could get the game that we love over here in a massive capacity.
Yeah, I guess it's more of a plea. We've tried to reason it out, but I think for me, I'm like, please get the NHL over to the UK. I would spend the money.
Yeah, we all would. Yeah, if there's any senior NHL officials who and people who work high up the flagpole that happen to drop on this podcast at all, please do get in touch with us. I'd love to be able to rationalise it all to you.
And we'd push it, we'd market it, we would.
Oh yeah, we would. Yeah, even get us down there. Get us down there for the game. I'd love that. Right. Is there anything else? Anything else that you wanted to bring up? I mean, in terms of the actual games themselves, we are going to be back next week with obviously a rundown of the start of the NHL season, with the champs and the chumps and the contenders and pretenders so far. But anything further from yourself, Nathaniel?
No, nothing further from me. So if you want to lead us out, we'll catch you next Monday.
Yeah, no worries. I'll do my my standard outro spiel, and that is that you can find us and follow us on both X and Instagram at the PBP Podcast. You can also get in contact with us on Gmail as well at penaltyboxperspective@gmail.com. If you've got any thoughts, feelings on the show, anything that you want to anything you want to see us cover, or anything, just any feedback as a whole. In addition to that, if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify at all, if you could please give us a 5-star review. Please feel free to annihilate me and Nathaniel in the comments of it. As long as it's 5 stars, that's absolutely fine with me. Obviously, if you've got any nice things to say, that also goes a long way as well. But yeah, obviously we're into the season now. We've hopefully got some really exciting things in the pipeline as the season progresses and moves. But yeah, thank you to everyone for listening so far, and yeah, we look forward to the next one.
Yeah. With that, we'll see you next time. Take care.